Hi guys, it's Don Durrett, Gold Stock Data. I did a little over a week ago, I did a YouTube video on developer projects that were going to begin construction within 3 years. And there was about 35 names on there. Well, today I came across a name today that I kind of thinks is a developer story. They are a producer. And I decided to go ahead and do another one for you, but this one is for companies that are longer term. So this is construction more than 3 years out, but some of these names are interesting. So this is kind of the second half of the development story. And there's 17 names here, so it'll take half as long. So that one took a little over an hour. So I'm thinking maybe we can get through this in 30 minutes. And the first name on the list is Alcane Resources, and that's the one that I found today because they had a news release, and I made it a top pick, and I increased the downside from 2.5 to 3 because of their news release today. Now, you might think it has a market cap of 252 million, so why am I excited about this stock? Seems kind of pricey. If we go and look at it, they're a 65,000 ounce a year producer in Australia. But which isn't that impressive, but they are generating free cash flow. They have an AISC about 1250. But what makes them interesting is their development, what they have in their pipeline. So I'm only bumping them up to 250,000, which I think they're going to exceed that in the long term. And I only have their future proven and probable at 5 million ounces, which I think they're going to exceed that quite a bit. So the mine that they're producing is a real solid mine. I mean, it's a long life, 1.5 million ounces at 2 grams. So, at 65,000 ounces a year, I mean, this thing's a 10 plus year project. So they have this foundational mine that they can generate free cash flows. They don't have to dilute, and they have a good balance sheet, 50 million in cash, 8 million in debt. But this is what got me interested today was their news release. So they have two huge gold copper projects in Australia. The first one is Boda. So in Boda, they had 1,150 meters at 0.5. That's really long. 0.45 grams per ton gold plus copper and silver offsets, and then more Boda holes. 700 meters at 0.46, 500 meters at 0.48. Boda is a 10 million ounce, 0.5 gram per ton gold equivalent, but it has like they have quite a bit of gold. So at higher prices, it's more of an optionality play. So combining these two projects, I wasn't really super excited. But then they had this second project called Kaiser with 4 million ounces, which is kind of interesting. Well, today they announced that Kaiser doubled in size to 8 million ounces. So you have Kaiser at 8 million, and 2/3 of that was indicated. So you got Kaiser at 8, you got Boda at 10. And they're producing 65,000 ounces, and they have a good balance sheet. All they have to do is build one of these projects, and their production should jump to 250,000 ounces. They build them both. I mean, this is a potential 500,000 ounce producer. So I think it's pretty darn interesting. So that's Alcane. The next one is Bobe, which is another Australian stock. I don't own it. I don't own Alcane either. I almost bought Alcane today though. Bobe, it's more of a base metals project, but it's valued at $13 million, so it's really cheap. But what makes Bobe so interesting is they do have a lot of silver, 35 million ounces, but it's mostly lead. It's basically a lead mine, so you might not like it. but if you 100,000 tons of lead. But if they can produce, their DFS is almost 2 million ounces a year of silver. So, I mean, if you consider it a silver mine, it would be a really super low cost, basically, I don't know, maybe even negative cost with all that lead, because the revenue is 75% of the revenue is lead. So it's basically a negative cost 1.5 million ounce silver producer. That's got to be worth, I don't know, 500 million. And they're currently priced at 13 million. So I don't own both because it's, like I said, it's a base metals, but it does have that silver component. If silver prices go up, it start looking really interesting. So that's something to look at. Gold Terra. This one probably should have made my original list. Somebody mentioned this to me. Market cap of $12 million in a good location in Canada. So if we look at Gold Terra, so they have the current resource 1.6 million ounces of gold, plus they have 450,000 at 11 grams underground. And they're valued again $12 million, and it's in Canada, Northwest Territories. This one is, I don't own this one. It's really under the radar. And by the way, on the first video that I did, I didn't tell you guys, I own every single stock on that list, just to give you a heads up. On these, the ones I go down, I'll tell you which ones I own and I don't own. I had a couple of interactions with the CEO, 21 and 22, but they just didn't make any progress. And I think that's the reason why the stock has gotten so cheap. So it's basically a high risk stock. Of course, it's high risk at that valuation, but it's a pretty good optionality play. And it's definitely a stock worth looking into. They could get a starter mine here with this really high grade and then possibly do this open pit. So the open pit's 1.2 million ounces of 1.5 grams. Now, maybe they have trouble permitting that. Maybe that's the reason why it's so cheap. But if they can permit that mine and get both of these mines in production at the same time, the upside is pretty significant. But they definitely have some work to do. They need to update the PEA, and we need to get a PFS, and I'm sure they're out of cash. I'm sure they're going to dilute. It's definitely not a slam dunk. I don't think any of these stocks on this list are slam dunks. The next one is Goldshore. And I do own Goldshore, but I don't really, did I sell it? I know Goldshore is out of favor for me right now. I think I might have sold this recently. I'm not sure. It's out of favor for me because of the water situation. The CEO, was very bullish, and he said it's worth, market cap is 31 million, and he said that permitting is not an issue. But I've gotten some emails from people or DMs from people who are telling me that they need to reroute the water, and there's a lot of water on this project. And if it gets permitted, it's a great project. Absolutely. My concern is permitting. It's in Ontario, which you think you could permit something in Ontario. They have plenty of insiders. Management owns 10%. They were drilling really aggressively, 100,000 meters. So I think the thing is pretty much drilled out. So I take it back. It's not drilled out. They still have a lot of targets, but it's drilled out enough to build a mine. 6 million ounces of 8.8 grams, plus 3.5 million ounces of 1.8. So that's really solid for open pit. So it's a lot of gold, very cheap, a lot of potential. But again, I'm concerned about permitting. And the CEO, he left the company to go be the CEO of Radisson Mining. And Radisson Mining, when I look at Radisson Mining, I don't see any excitement there. Now, Goldshore, to me, is an exciting project. Why did he leave? So I think that was one of the reasons I was considering selling. But it's definitely a project worth keeping your eye on. The next one is Highcraft. So I've always liked Highcraft as an optionality play. So it's valued at $96 million. But when you look at how much gold they have, it's peanuts. But we just don't know what their plan is. How are they going to build this thing? Um, I don't think they've even figured it out yet. Right now, they're drilling some high grade silver, maybe as a starter pit. But this mine is massive, but it's very, very low grade. So we're looking at 15 million ounces of gold and 600 million ounces of silver. But it's very low grade, low recovery. But even if you have 50% recovery rates, it's 7 million ounces of gold. That's it's a really large mine for what they're currently valued at. But there's a lot of unknowns on this. We don't know, you know, what the CapEx is going to be, how they're going to get there, how they're going to pay for, the feasibility study. So there's a lot of unknowns. How much they're going to produce annually? Are they going to do a starter pit? Are they going to do it in phases? Just, a ton of unknowns with Highcraft, high risk. On top of that, they have a lot of debt. They have 150 million ounces of debt, and they're probably going to blow through this cash before you know it. They'll be down to 25 million in cash and still have all that debt and still need to pay for the CapEx. So the balance sheet is ugly. The grade's ugly. There's a lot of ugliness on this project. But that said, as an optionality play, it's still interesting. So it's something, and I do own it. Next one's the International Tower Hill. This is probably going down this list so far. I mean, I like Alcane the best, but International Tower Hill probably should be a top pick. The only reason it's not is because of permitting. Valued at 125 million. I'm confident they're going to get their permits. And they have really, really strong insiders at 50%, so I'm not worried about them selling. I think this was John Paulson owns a big chunk of this one, I think. So, I think International Tower Hill probably should be a top pick. It's getting closer and closer to permitting, and it's actually in a really good location. It's outside of Anchorage, in a district. Yeah, John Paulson owns 30%. 13 million ounce mine, 80% recovery rate, valued at 125 million. So, you're getting a good price, if you will. So the CapEx is 2 billion. So we don't know how they're going to finance that CapEx. Maybe that's why I don't have it as a top pick. So yeah, so they're going to produce 350,000 ounces for 23 years. So as far as I'm concerned, that's a $5 billion company at $3,000 gold. 5 billion. And so, yeah, they're going to do a lot of dilution, but if they build this on their own, you're paying 125,000. I actually bought this thing down at 78 because when I got down to 78, I just thought this thing is just too silly cheap not to buy. But it's still pretty cheap. I mean, it still prints as a 10 bagger. So as an optionality play, it's one of my favorites. The next one is Newfound Gold. And Newfound Gold, I really like it. It's pricey, 600 million, $688 million. So I only have it rated as a 2. So you're like, Don, I don't like this thing. There's no upside there. But I don't know how big this thing's going to be. I mean, they just keep finding more and more gold, high grade gold. So, I mean, if you think about how much they're going to dilute before first of all, this thing's not going to get into production until, 2030 or later. I mean, it's a really long term bet. But if they hold this thing, let's say that, they end up finding, say 15 million ounces of gold, which I think is a legitimate number, and they produce, say, 800,000 ounces. And that's, a $10 billion company. Then they have to dilute it. So maybe we don't get a five bagger out of it. But I just want to own this thing because it's just, this might be one of the best projects in the world, and they can hang on to it because they have plenty of insiders. 50% insiders. That's, anybody that anybody calls them on the phone says, we'd like to be a partner with you. If we want to buy your project, they can just say, no, we're good, and hang up the phone. It's a massive property, 350,000 acres. All this thing seems to do is find high grade widths, 10 meters at 30 grams, kind of over and over again. Or 10 meters at 20 grams. It is a lot of, and they have all these zones. They just keep finding more and more. Right now they have 14 high grade zones and a 6-mile strike, and it just seems like one good hole after another. So it's like, Eric's brought, he keeps adding to it, which is amazing because that guy, he's not after one baggers. So I have it here. If they make it to production, I have gold at 2,500. The gold in the ground should be worth about $300 or more. I think 300 is a very conservative number. So if they find 15 million ounces of gold and they're valued at $300 each, that's 4.5 billion. And so they're currently, that's not really great upside, if you will, considering they have to pay for the CapEx. But I think, we could easily double that to 10 billion. It could be worth $600 an ounce, depending on what gold prices do. It's not a juicy play, but I do like it. The next one is kind of juicy, but it's a long-termer, Nova Minerals, and I do own this one as well. It's not a top pick because it's long-term, but it's valued at 42 million. Only have a 2.5. So Nova's not, I just said it was juicy, but it's a long-termer. And the reason why I say it's juicy because the size of I like the location in Alaska. I think Alaska is going to I think it's going to become more miner friendly, more shareholder friendly over time, mining friendly state. I think the EPA is going to end up, Alaska is going to kick the EPA. Right now, the state of Alaska is suing the EPA because the EPA won't give them an environmental permit for Pebble. I think Alaska is going to kick the EPA out of that state and build Pebble. So I'm bullish Alaska. So I think this project's definitely going to get built, but when? But they currently have 7 million ounces, which is a lot, but it's low grade, 0.3 grams. But over time, I think they're going to mine a lot of gold. The hard part is, getting that first mine built. So they have one mine that's 1.3 million at 2 grams open pit. So that's kind of a starter mine, and it's growing in size. They have a lot of targets. It's a big property. I think this is going to be a 10 million plus property, but it's definitely high risk. It's not a slam dunk. But again, I like Alaska. Like I said, I like International Tower Hill a lot. But you can see some of these drill holes. This is back from 2021, 373 meters at 3.8 grams from 7 meters. This is from surface. So that's basically part of a really big pit. But it hasn't turned into, a big open pit, because I said it's 1.3 million ounces. But I think it could use 287 at 4.8. 241 at 5.7. So these are really big holes. And then you have 98 meters at 12 grams from 95. Some really good holes. So I like Nova Minerals as an optionality / development story. Next one is Paramount Gold, Nevada. I thought this one was covered in the other one. Maybe not, maybe, I forget. Paramount Gold Nevada has a sleeper mine in Nevada, and sleeper, they've been working on Grass Valley in Nevada, and if they can keep, like, they're valued at 25 million, if they can, and I think sleeper is like 3 million ounces and it's going to grow in size. If sleeper gets to 5 million and then they keep half of it, that's an interesting story. I'm going over Paramount Gold Nevada very quickly because I think I covered that one already. Stellar Gold, This is a company, they changed their name, so that's why it's called Stellar. Previously, it was called Moneta Gold, and Moneta just merged with Nighthawk. So both of these companies had really good projects. So when you combine them both, gets really, really interesting. Again, it's kind of a long term, currently valued at 130 million. I do own this one. I own both of these projects, and then when they combined, I was kind of happy about that because I think it strengthens both. So their goal is to get both projects construction ready within 3 years. So that's a long wait. So it's basically this stock's going to kind of languish here for a couple of years, and then if things are trending, this thing, and they have 30% insiders, they should be able to hold on to it. And so it's it looks really, really solid. So you have Tower Hill is 260,000 ounce producer at 1100 ASIC, which is really solid. The capex is big, $500 million, and then Colomac 290,000 a year at 850 ASIC, again a big capex, 650. So they're going to have, but they're going to be able to choose which one of these they build. And then once they get the first one built, they'll be able to afford to build the second one. And they're going to have some really good margins here. So the payback, even though they're going to have to borrow a lot and they're going to have to dilute a lot, if they build both of these projects, Stellar is going to be a stellar stock, I think. I think that one actually looks pretty good. The next one is Silver One Resources. This one has been very disappointing. I have it as a C+ here. They just haven't made any progress. So Silver One has a project in Nevada, an open pit project that they acquired from, I can't think of the name, SSR Mining, who was basically giving away all their projects. And they just haven't drilled very much or done a PEA. But the project, I mean, it's something's going to happen with it. I mean, they're valued at 50 million ounces, and Candelaria that's the project I'm talking about. It's got 45 million ounces of M&I and another 35 million is inferred. So you're looking, this is a 60 million ounce or 65 million ounce project. That's 4 million ounces a year. That's $1 billion, and they're valued at 50. So they need to make some progress on this. So I'm not excited about it. Eric Sprott owns 15%. Insiders own about 25. So I don't see them selling unless they have to, giving it away. But we need to see some progress here. We need to see a plan. They also, interestingly, I saw these guys at Beaver Creek, and they wanted to talk about this Arizona project. I'm going, what? Why are you selling me on this Arizona project when Candelaria looks fantastic at higher silver prices? But back then, silver prices were 22, 23 bucks. So they're thinking that I'm not interested in Candelaria, or investors are not interested in it. When in fact, I'm valuing their company at $50 silver. I don't care if Candelaria isn't economic at 23, 24. That doesn't, so what? Get it ready to be built, get it construction ready, and then once it's construction ready, once it's economic, build it. But they don't see the value in that, and a lot of management teams don't. They don't think it makes any sense to make a project construction ready when it's not economic today. They don't have the vision of the future. So what if you have to wait around? Wait around. And that's one of the ones we're going to get to right here is a company that's been waiting around. And that is Spanish Mountain. So I do own Silver One. I do own Silver Mountain. Silver Mountain, those guys haven't done anything, but they're starting to come out of hibernation a little bit. But Spanish Mountain, it's a low grade project. So they're like, hey, we can't really build this thing. So they're not trying to get it construction ready. They're just sitting on their hands. Now, I wish, and the hard part is, trying to raise money to make it construction ready. It costs money. You're gonna dilute people into the ground. They already have 394 million shares, so they're valued 58 million. The CapEx is 460 million. It's getting closer. I thought the project looked attractive at $1,700 gold. Well, we're at $2,200 gold, and it's not that attractive yet, but it's getting there. They still have to do a feasibility, and then after the feasibility, they need 2 years to permit this thing. So it's a long-term deal, but they have 4.7 million ounces of M&I, and so this is a big mine. Big CapEx, a lot of cash flow, but it's going to take a while to build. But they have the insiders. I have it at 20%, but I think it's higher than that. The low end cash, about $3 million. So I have them at, total resources about 6 million. They print about as a 15 bagger as a 200,000 ounce producer. But I think that they're going to exceed this. So there's a lot of juice on this. It's a long wait. Not a slam dunk. Absolutely not. I said a lot of these names on here are not slam dunks. The next one is Thesis Gold. I do not own this one, but I'm definitely interested. I thought about it. It definitely was, a stock that I considered. I've been watching it pretty closely. And they renamed their company to from Benchmark to Thesis. Well, actually, they did a merger. What is it? They acquired. There was two projects. They had the Laura project, which is the one that Benchmark has, and then Thesis had a project called Ranch. So now we have a combined. I forgot who acquired who. But it turned out, it's Thesis Gold, so maybe Thesis acquired Benchmark. So the Lawyer project is very large, 3 million ounces of 1.5 grams, and they're targeting 5 million ounces, and they have 20 targets. Yeah, Benchmark acquired Thesis, but then they took their name. That's what confused me. And so they got this Ranch project, which is also a good sized project, which is right next door to them. So they're like, well, we'll just go ahead and we'll take that one too, and we'll prepare for the future. And so let's see what we have here on Ranch. It crashed management. It doesn't look like we have a resource for Ranch. They're going to release a maiden in 2024, but it looks like a pretty big mine. We have 27 meters at 9 grams, 28 meters. We have about 10 drill areas. So, so Thesis is a company, I've looked at very closely, didn't pull the trigger, almost did. I have a lot of these expert development stories. I don't know which ones are going to work. I kind of want to own as many as I can get my hands on, but I passed on Thesis. My feeling, if Thesis works, I think a lot of my other stories are going to work too. So I just didn't quite have the FOMO for it. TriStar, I do own TriStar, and TriStar is down in Brazil, and I like Brazil. I think it's a good place. Usually the open pit projects in Brazil are very economic. So they have 2 million ounces at 1 gram with 1.4 million ounces in reserves. So this is a quality project. You're looking 100,000 ounce producer, 80 to 100,000 ounce producer with some really good cash flow. The CapEx is 260 million to produce 100,000 a year, 140,000 for the first 4 years. So a fast payback. The CapEx is high, 260, and they only have a 30 million. That's a big red flag. Insider ownership, I have it at 23, so they probably fend, off any lowball bids. They're not going to, somebody calls and says, we'll give you a 30% premium, and they're going to say, no, thank you. They expect permitting to be completed early this year. So once it's permitted, they're on the way to production, wanting to finance. So this thing is starting to, starting to move in the right direction. Again, the red flag, of course, is the high capex. Other than that, I mean, it looks pretty solid. Some people are not, it's 2 million ounces. Is that enough to get you excited? Is it a big enough project? Uh, uh, for me, I mean, I think it, has 10 bagger potential. It's printing here as a 13 bagger, so I think it works. The next one is Unigold. I own this one. This one has been a really disappointing stock. I don't know if they're actually a developer. I think there might be more of an explorer, but currently valued at $16 million. They're in the Dominican Republic. I do have it as a 3 just because of a quality project, but I have it as a B minus. And the reason why it's a B minus because it's in Dominican Republic, which has been giving people a lot of problems as far as permitting goes. There isn't a lot of stability down there. There's a lot of people, a lot of companies that have had problems with their permits. And so, people have stayed away from it. $16 million when they have a 2 million ounce, Candelones is 2 million ounces with 25 more targets. So, I mean, this is a 3 million ounce project, maybe more. And they're not getting any value. Eric Sprott's here. He's got 11%. Management's got 7%. So those two combined. Now Barrick just came in. This is recent. Last summer, they came in and they took an 80% option on their Nada property, but they kept the Candelones. They kept this one, but they said, here, I don't know how much of the Candelone property they required because it says there's 25 more targets. If they kept, the entire area, and then they gave Barrick this other one. But if Barrick is interested in drilling in the Dominican Republic, then they're optimistic that things are going to improve. So they have that 20% JV there, but so they're working, they need to complete the feasibility and permitting. Permitting is a big one. They want to start off, this is a 2-phase project. The first phase is only 36 million. So with a short mine life, but they're not going to produce very much. And so, yeah, there's some unknowns here. There's some risk here. I'm not really excited about Unigold anymore, but I thought I would bring it up since it's a big development story. Vizla, I think you should all know this story. Vizla, they just keep, it's a fantastic, it's one of the better silver properties in the world. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. They just keep finding more and more silver on their property. They have more veins, but they don't have a PEA yet. I don't even think they have a maiden yet. So this is a long term. We don't know how big it's going to be. So they're drilling all these deposits. So they have a lot of areas to drill. So they're probably they have 6 drills turning. This property, they have 17,000 acres, 20 known veins. So it's going to be a while. We don't know how big this thing's going to get. Oh, we do have a maiden. This thing's 200 million ounces at 400 grams. So it's a big deposit already, probably going to double in size. But if they build it and they tend to, I have insiders here. No insiders. That's not a good sign, but I thought they had some. That's probably the red flag for Vizla is the lack of insiders. So because somebody can usually when there's not a big insiders, they sell that they usually sell these things. They drill them out and sell them, and then you're not going to get your big upside. We really need, we need this to be, a 10 million ounce a year property, which is going to take a long time. That was the updated resource. So, they're not giving us any indication of when they're going to do a PEA. Sometimes that's a sign that the company is an exploration company. They're not a developer when they're dragging their feet on the PEA, and they have been dragging their feet. Oh, my insiders is wrong. It says the management owns 15 and Eric Sprott owns 10. So 25% insiders there. I don't know why I missed that. So let's update this real fast. 25. So plenty of insiders for Vizla. They're currently valued at $300 million, but if it's a 10 million ounce a year project, I mean, it's got a lot of upside still to go. The last one on my list is Wallbridge. So I do have Wallbridge as a 4-3, but I don't have it as a top pick. And the reason why is because it's just so far away. They're currently valued at 80 million. Wallbridge is another one of those. It's a long shot. It's not a slam dunk. I do own Wallbridge and I do own Vizla. But Wallbridge in many respects has been a disappointment. So it's valued at 80 million. I think 80 million, I think you would say it is a disappointment. I mean, they bought Balmoral and they haven't gotten anything in return. I mean, they paid more than 80 million for Balmoral. So, I mean, you could look at it from that viewpoint that we're getting Balmoral for free because the Fenelon project that Wallbridge owns is worth more than $80 million. And we also have the Balmoral property. Now, when you combine those two properties together, in the long term, they're still drilling, but in the long term, I think this thing's going to be a lot bigger than it is. It's already 5 million ounces. So when you combine them, I mean, I think we're looking at, basically a 10 million ounce project in Canada and is valued at $80 million. So currently I only have them at 5.5 million, but I think this thing probably is going to grow to 10. I'm only valuing them as a 200,000 ounce producer, but I think it could double that. I think that they could be a 400,000 ounce producer in the long term. So as a 200,000 ounce producer, I have them as a 9-bagger. But again, I think it's going to be more than that. So I think Wallbridge is kind of under the radar here. We have a PEA where they're going to be a 200,000 ounce producer. And again, I think that's just a starting point. I think this company's easily 300,000, probably 400,000 when they get done. They have a lot of targets between these two properties to drill. So, I mean, if we look at this, we go back and look at this list, the ones that I think kind of stand out to me, going down, I'm going to mark the ones that I think those are the ones to me that really stand out. You can screenshot and go back and do your list. I don't have these as top picks, but I don't have that one as a top pick either. But those are the ones that I think are gonna pay off. That seem to stand out more. But super cheap with, I don't know. That's just my gut feeling, the ones that are gonna fly. Okay, guys. I gotta stop my share and stop my recording. All right. Thanks for sticking around.